To describe your life when Saad does this silly shit.
Gain attention for
as was
him,
discussed by Chris, but Gabe, you
so
can
he
touch
can't help
upon
himself.
when you're on attack.
And I think
you
that's
ban
what it
an
is.
attack. When you are a defender, you ban an
This
attack.
is so high school. I'd be surprised if the idiots weren't
whether
collabing
you
at this
wanna
point.
remove one or
Yes,
the other,
dude.
now
The
it's
dumbest
just
guy on the
locked in,
fucking
you
planet
tackle it
looks at
head
the
on.
situation of,
Team Skittles,
I don't know, the
whatever bomb site they go to,
Anti-Defamation
which looks
League
like it'll be one of the
actively
upstairs
trying
bomb
to take
sites,
down
CCTV
and
and cache.
deplatform
They don't want to
a
deal with the
pro-Palestinian
thermite. Thermite
voice,
is so
including but
strong
not
on this
limited to
bomb
getting a
site,
Democratic
not just
Party
to open up that
congressperson to
CCTV
demand
wall,
my
but additionally
deplatforming using the
to open
fucking
up the
congressional
other portion of
letterhead
the upstairs, which would be
5
the
days
jacuzzi
before a
wall
general
or the
election
construction wall.
and says,
It's
this
gonna
is just
hinder
high
the
school
attack.
drama.
We're not only
At a certain
seeing
point, you
a
have to
bandit
realize
rot successfully,
you're
but we
trying
are
to
also
minimize
seeing
it
that just that
because
little
on
extra bit
Ethan's
of
side, it does come
reinforcement
across
to make
like
sure that
fucking
anybody
high school
denial
drama
location
because he
is
doesn't
going
care
to
about the
be
politics of it
more than
all.
off.
It's just
But
content
that
and
goes
drama
into,
for
once
him
again,
and his dumb
the
fuck
picks
audience.
advance. That the fact that it falls off on behalf that you are now seeing what the other
It's
team
not
has to go
drama.
against.
We're
Was
talking
that
about
defending
people's
side wasn't
livelihoods
successful?
being
You
actively
can essentially
ruined
get
by
rid of
a
once you
fucking
get to that level
pro-Israel
and know exactly
mouthpiece
kind of the approach
who
and
has
how you want
used
to
his
play your
platform
defenses
to
or how you want
constantly
to
go
play your
after
attack
anyone
just based
and
off that
everyone,
path.
making a fool of himself in the process.
Looking like it's going to be a pretty default setup from the side.
What do you
of
mean? It's
Skittles.
just
Nothing
high school
too
drama,
crazy here. I am
Lamau.
expecting
Yeah,
Bartek
if you're
to either
stupid
bandit trick this
and
wall,
watching
which I
from
think that's what
afar,
we're going to see here.
yeah, it looks like high
Bandit
school
trick
drama. If you're
lines
watching it from
wall.
Ethan's side,
And then
it looks like high school
The real
drama.
question is, how is Team Needy Marley going to
tactical
play
place.
into this attack?
For those that are unfamiliar with Siege, and I mean, I
Do you think
suspect
Ethan
there's
will
a
have a
few people
redemption arc?
watching
At this stage,
who
this is a
haven't
stupid
had
fucking
full
question to
hands-on
ask.
experience with the game.
He will never have a
When
redemption
you
arc until he
reinforce a
fucking
wall, it
apologizes
means
for
that you
all of
need
the
a
things that he has done in the
specific
past
gap
year
to cut
and
through
try to
that
make up
steel
for it.
reinforcement.
And
Thermite
even
is
then,
one of
plenty
those
of people are
operators.
not going
He
to
was
be
one that
on
was
his
banned
side.
by Team Skittles.
And he is not the bigger man in this process. He's not going to be humble enough and demonstrate the humility necessary to say, yeah, this past year of active deplatforming initiatives that I engaged in against all fucking pro-Palestinian content creators, demanding that they get fucking fired over and over again, all of that was wrong. And if he were to say all of that was wrong and turn around and try to offer restitution, even then, there's going to be plenty of people who say, fuck you. There's plenty of people who are going to be vicious to him. You know? The CC vid was even an intervention at the end. People still complimented him and wished him well. It doesn't matter. He's lost in the fucking sauce. All right, let's get back to the news. Full charitable long-term fan of yours. It's just frustrating that this dude takes away attention from like news that's really important, and it's annoying. It's a daily occurrence, but I get why it's covered. I think he's trying to set it up to pretend like he gets it now. He needs to save his pod, but doesn't want to admit being a bad person. Hassan, you're ignoring the insane Destiny fans that are fueling this loser, and Dan are fueling Ethan's mania, and Ethan's having a full mental break fueled by Destiny fans. It's sad, but it is what it is. I know, but it doesn't matter. Because to the outsiders that are just fucking signing in, they see their favorite content creator being victimized by vicious anti-Semites online. And that is completely untrue. It's also causing dumb fucks that you need to have on your side if you actually want to build a coalition to literally go, I don't really care about any of this stuff. I think everyone's been mean to my favorite content creator. So, the pro-Palestinian cause is actually silly. Like, it's ridiculous. And I know it sounds stupid, and you might say to yourself, well, fuck those people. And I understand why your immediate reaction is fuck those people, because fuck those people. But you need those people. You need everyone. You need as many people as you can. You need as many people to fight alongside you at a time when the American government is literally fucking blackbagging people for the crime of saying mean things about Israel. Okay? You need people on the streets. So I'm not going to cast aside fans that are too stupid to understand the truth. I was an H3 watcher before I watched your stream. The pro-Palestinian crowd has left the H3 viewership long ago. We are not there anymore. Your chat thinks that this is drama too. I don't understand why they don't care that at least a few people from E's audience could realize how he's been lying to them and negatively affecting their perspective. If you debate him, that's valuable. I think so too, yes. I will go to any space I have to and convince anyone I can. You were mentioning on Philip DeFranco that came out an hour ago. What did he say? It's not just drama.
Ethan Klein needs to stop talking about Palestine because this man cannot take even the mildest of criticisms. He cannot reflect on any of the things that he has actually said. He wishes to live within a world in which neither he nor Hila have ever done anything wrong, that they are both actually some of the most pro-Palestinian content creators out there. And I had initially written out a whole script talking about Ethan Klein's first podcast episode reacting to iDubbbz Content Cop because it was filled with many hilarious gems, such as when Ethan called Israel an inspiring example of coexistence. But there was one part of his second podcast episode reacting to iDubbbz video which really leapt out to me, and it has derailed what I wanted to say really, because in it Ethan compares the experience of his wife Hila to that of Anissa, iDubbbz's wife, a Lebanese person.
The most important impact will be the non-H3, non-Hassan viewers who watch this as drama and are totally ignorant as to the base of this conflict. This is an opportunity to set a foundation in their minds towards the status of Israel's genocide, because sadly this kind of content gets a lot of fresh eyes. Exactly. There's a reason why a lot of these content creators like Chris Kunzler or even Bad Empanada to a certain degree constantly talk about this issue, or Noah Samson, talk about this issue from the framework of drama, and then they slam in as much information as possible in the process. It's like drama baiting to educate. Because a lot of people, unfortunately, need that. They need the drama. They cannot fucking lock in on the issues, on the basis of the issues alone. My most charitable interpretation is that the content cop got through to him, not because of the messaging, but because of the viewership ratio, and he's going to use Sam and then you to quietly back out of talking about Israel-Palestine by saying he talked it out, and hopefully pivot back to being a comedy slop tuber. Fucking doubtful. I hope. But yeah, make no mistake, okay? This is not... I hope. Make no mistake, though. This isn't fucking drama. It's Hasbara, okay?
Making it out as if Lebanon could in any way be portrayed as an aggressor who bears the same responsibility as Israel.
Part of the Lebanese, they've received a lot of oppression and attacks from the IDF.
Of the German military at a certain point. Do you know how scary it was to experience the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising? It's really fucked up. Yeah. It's really fucked up that Hezbollah violently retook southern Lebanon, which was rightful Israel land.
You attempt to lecture me on this conflict. You just learned about this like 2 weeks ago, clearly, and you're just deferring to Hassan as an expert. It's mind-bendingly dumb. Bro, please call in and debate me on Israel-Palestine. Let's see who knows more about the conflict.
Now, I really hate how smarmy Ethan is in this clip. He makes out that he's some kind of much as Ethan loves to talk about Middle Eastern Jewish people and how they came to Israel, what I will say is Israel is undeniably a foreign implant in the Middle East. I mean, one of their key founders, Theodor Herzl, literally said of Zionism, "We should there form a portion of a rampart of Europe against Asia, an outpost of civilization as opposed to barbarism." And this is exactly what the American diplomat, when he told him that he didn't want to see people being killed by the Lebanese in camps, we will kill them. They will not be left there. You are not going to save them. You are not going to save these groups of international terrorism. If you don't want the Lebanese to kill them, we will kill them. And even though one of the conditions for PLO militants leaving Lebanon had been that Palestinian civilians would have been protected, Israel didn't abide by this, and those phalangists that I mentioned earlier, well, their leader, Gemayel, was assassinated, and of course the PLO were blamed, even though it wasn't them. And so Israel and Ariel Sharon let the phalangists go into the Sabra and Shatila refugee camps and perpetrate mass rape, mass torture, summary executions, mutilation of bodies, alleged stories where the fetus was cut out of a pregnant woman's belly and left on the floor, people stabbed, babies stabbed. I mean, the scale of it was far bigger than October the 7th. Perhaps up to 3,000 or 3,500 people were...
Yeah, and the way that Israel designed this to create plausible deniability over their involvement wasn't to directly go in and participate in the slaughter, but instead shut off with the IDF every entry point into the camp. Literally blocking every entry point into the camp, every exit point into the camp with their vehicles and with their weapons, and throwing up flares in the air so the visibility is there for the Phalangist forces, and allow them to slaughter every single Palestinian they could get their, and Lebanese person they can get their fucking hands on. It was barbaric. This is the environment in which there was a Lebanese militancy that was formed.
Killed inside these camps. And you may be saying, well, Israel didn't do it, that's okay. Well, they fired flares in the air so the phalangists could do it. They knew what the phalangists were doing. They were the ones who had trained the phalangists, armed them. They controlled the area, let them go in. In fact, a Norwegian who was in the area at the time said that the IOF had full view of a bulldozer digging a mass grave. And in fact, this wasn't even the first time that the phalangists had been allowed to do this. In Tel al-Zata, 1,500 Palestinian and Lebanese civilians were massacred. And often people like to claim that, you know, Israel's gone down this dark path. Maybe they highlight how the Likud...
Wait, I'm lost. Who are the Phalangists? Phalangists are a Maronite Christian sect in Lebanon that developed a neo-Nazi paramilitary and engaged in atrocious acts of barbarism against the Lebanese Shia and Palestinian refugee population in Sabra and Shatila. You might have heard about Sabra and Shatila from the Sabra and Shatila massacre. They did this with direct coordination with the Israeli forces. They're not Christians, they're Christian Nazis. Christian neo-Nazis. Okay? It's the difference between your parents that say they're Christian versus, I don't know, the Westboro Baptist Church or the fucking Klan also claiming to be Christian. Yeah, Franco is what they, as far as I understand, what they get their influence from. Like actual fascists.
Party in particular has turned Israel into this horrible place. But the Labour Party in Israel in the 1970s had no problem with the Tel al-Zata massacre. In fact, this is what Likud members were saying to members of the Labour Party in the 1980s in the wake of Sabra and Shatila. Ariel Sharon would go on to say, "We did not criticize you for supporting..."
Bro, I went to a Jewish day school for like 8 years of my life and I didn't learn about Sabra and Shatila until your stream like a year ago. Yeah, of course. Why would they teach that? It would make Israel look horrible.
The Christians. I am talking about a moral aspect. You kept on supporting the Christians even after the Tel al-Zata massacre. The information about...
I'm a Maronite. The Phalange are neo-Francoists who adopted neo-Nazi ethnic policy. My whole family are ashamed to have had even one member of my family who are with them. Mavdli al-Phalange.
about the massacre and its cruelty was in everyone's possession. Sharon told member of the Knesset Yitzhak Rabin, "We had already known what they had done with the weapons we supplied."
Yeah, Israel's greatest fear is people learning the truth. Like that's it. That's why they so effectively try to tamper it. That's why instead of addressing this and like trying to make justifications for these horrifying atrocities, they will turn around and just go ban this person, deplatform this person for saying historical truths about Israel's involvement. That is the only way that you can approach the subject matter, because if people learn about it, I mean, think about it this way. Post October 7, it became undeniable. Israel's cruelty became unfucking deniable because they were doing a live streamed Holocaust. Think about people's attitudes and how they shifted over the course of 1 year. It's not like they didn't try to fucking stop the truth from coming out. They executed as many journalists as they possibly could. They executed as many fucking journalists as they possibly could. They shut off the internet in certain instances. And yet the truth still came out. That's what they don't want.
And the forces we helped them build. However, we did not criticize you. And this is how both political parties in Israel dealt with massacres of Palestinian and Lebanese civilians that eclipse anything on the scale of October the 7th. And you know, inside Israel proper, there was actually a very big reaction to what had happened in Sabra and Shatila. There was a march with 400,000 people, a rather large percentage of the Israeli adult population. And as a result, Menachem Begin and Ariel Sharon stepped down from their positions after the Israeli Kahan Commission found that they were both complicit in Sabra and Shatila. But the Israelis still went on to elect Ariel Sharon as their prime minister in 2002, and he oversaw more slaughter of Palestinians, more destruction of their lives and townships. And yet you sit here and you cannot understand why someone might say, well, actually, yeah, a Lebanese person has a much different experience to that of an Israeli. Israelis have sat pretty. Yes, they have experienced violence and civilians being killed, but nothing on the scale of what Israel has done to Lebanon. And Israel did this not in pursuit of terrorists, but to alter the policy.
Here's another great example, by the way, of how Israel operates. New, after hundreds of Yale students protested in advance of Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is a fucking psychopathic Nazi settler terrorist who demanded the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, okay, who had photos of one of the most prominent Israeli terrorists of all time in his fucking living room, a Kahanist. He came to Yale. Yale now has stripped the School Students for Justice for Palestine chapter of its official status as an official student group. Yes, Ben-Gvir is a Kahanist who celebrated the Jewish terrorist mass shooter. Yeah. Like, imagine having a photo of fucking Dylan Roof in your living room, okay? And then, after being elected into office, you reluctantly have to take it down in order, and you say, when you're taking down the photo of Dylan Roof, you say, oh, I'm not doing this because of my convictions. I'm doing this because I want people to shut the fuck up about it. Okay? A framed photo of Dylan Roof. Oh. Itamar Ben-Gvir was not allowed to serve in the IDF because of how extremist he was. Can you understand? The Israeli occupying force, which is a force for terror in and of itself, said, you're too rabid for us. And now that guy's being welcomed to fucking Yale at a time when the administration is literally fucking going after every goddamn university for allowing this kind of stuff to happen, right, on their campuses, understandably. And what is Yale doing? Even before the administration demands that this group is disbarred, Yale has already taken up taken that position already, saying that it's good that a convicted terrorist is on our fucking campus. It's like inviting one of Adolf Hitler's little generals onto college campus and having like the Jewish American movement that's protesting against it disbarred. Yeah, here's another wonderful thing that Itamar Ben-Gvir did. Ben-Gvir handed out thousands of guns to Israeli citizens. Then the murders began. It didn't begin. It exploded. It increased. It's fucking insane. I feel like I'm losing my mind when we talk about this issue where it's like the morality is so fucking clear.
Politics of the region to set up a state there that was sympathetic to them, that might normalize relations with them. And you sit there and act as if Lebanon are the aggressors. It is frankly disgusting. It is like how you cannot understand how the Do Not Worry podcast was not upset at all about Israelis fleeing a rocket attack and a siren. The reason that people from the region think like this is well documented in an article by Norman Finkelstein in the early 1990s about Palestinian reactions to Saddam Hussein firing Scud missiles at Israel. And when he asked them why did they whoop and cheer at the prospect of Israeli civilians being targeted, all of them said it wasn't really actually about civilians being killed. It was Israelis feeling like they did for once. Feeling like they did when their homes were bombed and destroyed. Experiencing the fear and terror of Israeli raids and oppression. For that one...
And then, of course, people will say, well, that's kind of mean, don't you think? Which is why we need to do more October 7s to the Palestinians and all the Arabs in the region. Stoogeless, thank you for the 50 bones.
Moment Israelis had to experience what every single Lebanese person has experienced through bouts of mass slaughter. And even then, just hearing sirens and getting to hide in your bunker doesn't compare to what Israel has done to the Lebanese people. And this is why it just irks me so much that Ethan sits there and talks about history, because anyone with any knowledge of history should be able to say, well, actually, what the IOF have done to Lebanese people far eclipses what has ever been done to Israeli civilians, and any politics must therefore centre the people of Lebanon, the people of Palestine, rather than the feelings of Israeli people. And
yeah,
Ethan,
it's fucking insane. But of course, because Israel is our ally, Israel is has a close association with America. Israel is the favored client state, and also has a shit ton of propaganda initiatives in the West. By way of people that have dual citizenship, by way of people that have financial ties to the state of Israel and its continuation, and sometimes direct financial ties to the destructive nature of Israel's apartheid state, that you never hear about this. You never hear about this from the perspective of the victims themselves. And the people that do actually desperately try to use their privilege, like Chris here being a fucking white British guy with a Middle Eastern Studies master's and continuing on to get a fucking PhD, or someone like myself who has a platform of prominence, like when we use our platform and our privilege, people desperately try to undermine that by either making fucking shit up to be like, don't listen to this guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Please don't listen to this guy. Or by directly demanding the deplatforming of people like myself.
if you want to see the distinction that you make between us and them, which was the center of my previous video, you are so quick to explain, well, Israelis have difficult choices to make. All these crazy things happen there. People want to defend their homeland. And, oh, what was Israel supposed to do after October the 7th? But what were Lebanese people and Palestinians supposed to do after Sabra and Shatila? Or all those other...
Yeah, in case you were wondering, as I was, who invited Ben-Gvir to Yale? A Jewish society run by a real estate magnate, co-founded by Cory Booker and Rabbi Shmuley. Shocking.
The mass bouts of slaughter. They never got
Is it different, Rabbi Shmuley? Wait, really? It's not Boteach? Shabtai, the group hosting Ben Gvir, is run by real estate magnate Shmuley Hecht and is not officially affiliated with Yale. Ben Gvir, one of the most far-right... Wait. And Rabbi Shmuley Hecht. Oh, yeah, this is not the Rabbi Shmuley. Rabbi Shmuley is... this is a different Rabbi Shmuley. There's two of them. This is not the dildo salesman. Yeah, it's not Shmuley Boteach. It's a different Rabbi Shmuley. There's a TrueAnon episode about the three Shmuleys.
revenge. They never got anything in return. They set up armed groups.
Cory Booker is also homies with the Rabbi Shmuley, though. That's probably why he
as
made that
violent
mistake.
and irrational monsters. But Israelis, well, you know, it's understandable, and it's a fantasy to think that Israel may have to behave differently, even though they are the ones who have undeniably perpetrated the worst crimes against innocent civilians. And this is just where one of my key problems with Ethan lies. He just always centers Israeli feelings. He always goes on and on about anti-Semitism, which of course is most definitely a real thing that Jewish people experience. But Ethan, you sit pretty in Los Angeles right now. You are a multi-millionaire living in a mansion, and you are talking about your feelings. You highlight From the River to the Sea, and Gila chimes in and says, well, why don't they use a different slogan?
Talking about all Palestinian lands. Once again, that's funny because it's exactly related to what he accuses me of spreading Israeli propaganda.
You know what's funny about this dude? This dude from Lebanon who was like, this dude from Lebanon said, given what Israel has done to us, it would be justifiable to do 1 million October 7th to Israel. And it would be fine to do 1 million October 7th to Israel, which I don't agree with. Okay. I think that's still a incredibly violent statement to make. But Ethan, by definition, has justified that over and over again because Israel has done 1 million October 7th to the Palestinian population and even to the Lebanese population, as a matter of fact, and to, in certain instances, the Syrian population, and he fucking defends it. But because you get to say whatever the fuck you want about Israel and no one goes, what do you mean? They're doing a genocide. He can say all of that without ever fearing deplatforming or anything like that.
Yeah. My point is when Israelis hear From the Ocean to the Sea, they hear all of Israel. And guess what? That's what the guy from Hamas is saying on the screen of the clip you showed.
I don't understand. If a movement is for peace between two people and one people is telling you they're not comfortable with the statement, shouldn't we change the statement to something that both...
That's insane. And it's ironic because I had this conversation long before Ethan is having this conversation with Hila, where in the month of October in 2023, Ethan and I had this conversation where I described to him, this is like listening to the demands made by racist white guys who are saying, oh, you're saying Black Lives Matter, but that to me means you want to kill white people. So you can't say Black Lives Matter. That was an attempt by the All Lives Matter crowd. This is exactly the same. This is an analog. What is the alternative? From the sea all the way to the fucking Gaza envelope where there's a border wall and then also skipping over the fucking Israeli proper, skipping over the green line all the way to the other side of the border wall firmly placed upon the West Bank to the river. Like, is that what people should be saying? Like, what a fucking ridiculous statement. That's where the Palestinians are, between the river and the sea.
people can get behind.
No, because they'll say, right. Well, people will say that Israel's the aggressor, so they shouldn't have to adjust anything.
Yeah, but that's like
it's
watered
true.
down.
Is Israel not the aggressor? It is.
American version of what's happening there.
Once again, the people who do nothing wrong when it comes to Palestine can't admit that Israel is an aggressor. Both of them think that Israel occupies Palestinian land illegally, settles it, perpetrates genocide and all of these things, but they don't see these as aggressive acts which provoke retaliations against Israel. Instead, that's a watered-down American understanding of Palestine. But ultimately, the call from the river to the sea is a demand for the liberation of all of historic Palestine, not just the occupied territories. Ethan and Healer seem to have absolutely no problem with the 1948 Nakba, the fact that 750,000 Palestinians were expelled, many of them were sent on death marches, and since they have never been allowed to return. Many people still languish in refugee camps in places like Jordan, Syria and Lebanon, not being allowed to return to their homes. The people of Gaza, some of them can literally see where their homes and lands once were, but they're now occupied by Israelis. So the call from the river to the sea is not problematic, rather it is a demand for full Palestinian liberation. People are being burnt alive right now en masse in Palestine, children by the dozen, homes being collapsed on entire families, people are being tortured in Israeli jails to death, including minors. And yet you want to talk about your feelings and whether a slogan is offensive to Israeli people. I am sorry, but Israelis en masse are not opposing what is happening in the Gaza Strip. There's been no mass dissent. It's only really come recently when they're worried about the fate of Israeli hostages. There has been no mass disobedience over the last 18 months in Israel. There has been no major reaction against what Israel is doing. It's only really centered on their complaints around Netanyahu and the threats to Israel's faux democracy and Netanyahu.
Chris, but Gabe, you can touch upon when you're on attack, so gone are whether you want to remove one or the other. Now it's just locked in, you tackle it head on. Team Skittles, whatever bomb site they go